Hey everybody, welcome to this podcast of From Mourning to Action, Powerfully Working Through Loss. I am your host, Dr. Damon Silas, and today we have a very special guest. I'm really excited to have this man on this podcast. I actually had the pleasure of taping and recording with his podcast, The Nurse Doc, and I just had a blast. And y'all will probably see his whole setup. He has an elaborate setup. He's real professional, doing a little bit differently than I am here, you know. But before I bring him on, what I want to do is just read his bio and work through that real quick because it's very, there's a lot there, but I think it's so important that you all understand who we're talking to today. So let me just pull that up. So Dr. Wesley Willis. So I'm going to start a little bit in the middle, but upon graduation from Talladega High School, he was inspired by his family to enter the field of nursing and earned his associates in applied sciences, or AAS, with a major in nursing from Central Alabama Community College. During undergrad, he was inspired further by several dynamic and fascinating professors in the Department of Social Work while attending Alabama State University until graduation in 2002. It was from these professors' interests, investment, and encouragement that he went on to pursue and complete a master's in social work at the University of Alabama in 2003. He later obtained a master's of science in public safety from Auburn University in Montgomery in 2004. Wesley continued his education in human behavior and obtained his doctorate of psychology as PsyD, fellow PsyD, I might add, from Argosy University located in Washington, D.C. in 2010. He later returned to earn a Bachelor of Science in Nursing from Herbert H. Lehman College in Bronx, New York. After working several years as a social worker, emergency nurse, critical care nurse, and case manager, he started his own practice, RHIO Wellness, that's R-H-I-O, which stands for Reflective Healing and Inspiring Outcomes in 2010. The goal of his practice was to meet the holistic mental and physical health needs of underserved men and women in New York City. He has since opened satellite offices in upstate New York, Princeton, New Jersey, and Washington, D.C., and in 2013 he was awarded the New York City Council citation for his outstanding volunteerism by Councilwoman Dickens. He has received multiple honors from associations as well as named a Robert Wood Johnson Fellow. He's the immediate past president for the New York State chapter of the American Psychiatric Nurses Association, board chairman for a 675 student charter school, Harriet Tubman in the Bronx, and active member of Sigma Theta Tau International Honor Society of Nursing, former chair of fundraising committee for the New York City chapter of National Black Nurses Association, and co-moderator for the New York State Society of Clinical Social Workers. He's licensed in the professions of psychology, clinical social work, and nursing. So first and foremost, I have to take a breath. Secondly, I mean, how do you do it all? Like that? Yes, how do you do it all?
I just honestly, you know what, I feel like I've been blessed. I've had these, like it says in my bio, I had these professors, and I feel like every intersection of life, I've had people like to surround me and to like support me to the next level, which has made it incredibly easy to kind of just transition into each level.
Man, that's so wonderful. Just to be able to rely on that network of people who are there to support you and really watch you grow and just, you know, grow into this amazing clinician. Right.
It was definitely not something I think I pictured for myself earlier in life, but it just kind of happened. You know, I just kind of had, like I said, professors who just were like, you know what? Here's the next level for you, and we're going to make it easy for you. You know, and so, yeah.
No, I love that. And it's just like such a great testament to when somebody believes in you and you follow what they believe and believe in yourself. It could just lead to not only multiple letters after your name, but just all of these successes and being able to touch so many different people's lives. So, man, it's just Yeah, I
Yeah,
commend you.
that's the thing, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I didn't believe in myself, but I
Mm.
had people who just believed in me so much. So I was like, okay, if that's what you say, if you think that I can do this, I'll give it a try.
Yeah, yeah. And that's all it takes, right?
Right.
Um, well, I believe in you so much, which is one of the reasons why I had you on this show, because I just
Thank
thoroughly
you.
enjoyed our conversation the last time. Now this conversation is going to be a little different, right?
Right.
Because we're
Right.
talking in this podcast about loss, so it's not the lightest topic. But I think I really appreciate that you come from two very distinct but intertwining, backgrounds, which is the mental health field and as a nurse, kind of the more physical aspects of things. And you just have a very unique perspective, as we will get into on loss. So,
Right.
can you do me a favor and
Mhm.
tell the audience just a little bit about the loss that you would like to share during this podcast?
Yes. So my most recent loss, and I had like to add, I've been fortunate. I feel like in coming up on almost 40 years of life that I haven't had many significant losses. I really can only count one significant loss before the loss of my grandmother, which happened last month, and that was my grandfather that passed away when I was an undergrad.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, that was my most recent significant loss that I'm sharing on the podcast.
Mm. So, man, that's so fresh for you, I'm sure. Like you said, it was only a month ago, so I'm sorry for your loss. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, tell me what it's, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about the acronym of action and the things that you've done just in that month, but how have you, just overall, kind of in a nutshell, how have you been in the last month in losing your grandmother?
It's been, I think to best to say it, it's just been a roller coaster. I've had really good days where, I'm able to just think rationally and say, my grandmother's in a better place. My grandmother lived 88 really significant years of life, and not just like
Mm.
her own way, but affecting others. She was a teacher, so to know that she's kind of gone on because I was there for her most recent birthday, says that, you know what, the woman that I saw then was not that vibrant, sassy woman that partially raised me.
Mm.
So I've had days where I've been very rational about that, and I've had days where everything reminds me of my grandmother.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, and like you said, there's that rational, logical part of you that says, okay, I know she's in a better place. And then there's that other part, the emotions,
Right.
which are coming up for you that you notice in each day. And like you said, I'm sure there are each moments within those days that are very different too.
Right.
Mm.
Right. Definitely.
So I want to get into, just working through, and I appreciate you even being on and talking about such a new loss, because for some other people that I've discussed this whole, podcast with and talked to them, interviewed them, a lot of them are kind of older, so people have had a little bit of time to process and work through. So this is different. And it's good, I think, for a lot of listeners out there who may have recently gone through a loss and maybe in the same emotional space that you possibly are too.
Right.
So, first and foremost, in the action plan, we talk about affirmations and the things that you say to yourself to, maybe it's that day where you just don't feel like getting out of bed, or you just don't think that you're going to be able to make it through your entire day. Tell me some of the things that you may have to say to yourself during those times.
Well, I always hear my grandmother's voice kind of in my head, because my grandmother was, again, she was just a very real person. She always kept it 100, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And I hear that voice in her head because when she passed, I was like, I think I shouldn't go to work. I don't want to go to work. And my grandma always said, boy, dead people don't pay no bills. So the truth is, I have to get out of bed. I hear her voice telling me, and that kind of, that's an affirmation enough for me that my grandmother knew, like, don't fall apart,
Right.
So yeah, I think those are some of the most significant ones. Also, that affirmation, like, my grandmother's in a better place, and considering like how she grew up and where she grew up, she had it much harder, and she was so much, she was so successful. So you better keep it moving. You have no time to like load around.
Right. Dead people don't pay no bills. I love it. Right. Now I'm going to have that in my mind every time.
She was a Southern woman.
Yes. And like you said, living 88 years, she's, as a black woman, as an African American woman, I'm sure she's seen so many things. And probably there were days when she wanted to not get up and not do, but it wasn't a choice.
Right.
Yeah, so... we talk a little bit about even that creativity. And I think, even when you talk about some of these sayings that people have, and just the saying of that people don't pay no bills, I think that in and of itself is very creative and a humorous way to kind of help us work through the pain of grieving and mourning. Tell me some other things that you've noticed that, have been creative for you, or maybe... there's something that shows up at work or at home that is a little bit different that you may not have even noticed or you wouldn't have put in that creative category.
I think one of the things also is that kind of like an affirmation. My grandmother was kind of not really a very ornate woman, but I've never been one to wear anything more than a watch. And so I've invested in things that remind me of my grandmother. So I kind of feel like she's close, like bracelet, and put charms on it that remind me of my grandmother. Like one is a crown because my grandmother considered herself a queen.
Yes, I love it.
I think that's creative for me, and it's comforting.
How cool is that? So you really didn't have bracelets or... jewelry like that
I've
before.
always been one of those. Anything more than a watch was too much. But my grandmother was one of those women that believed in bracelets. She believed in you wear things that make you feel good. And part of that was jewelry, like a necklace and bracelets and rings. And she prized those things. And so these kind of remind me of that.
I love it. And such a great way to honor her.
I feel like it.
Yeah, and she's probably, I don't know what your
laughing.
beliefs. Right.
Down like my grandson is crazy.
I knew he was gonna wear a bracelet one of these days. Right. The seeds are always planted a long time ago, so before they start to take sprout. But yeah, that's definitely a great example of. Stepping outside of your norm of creativity and just allowing her to come through and shine through, and parts of yourself. It sounds like it has been allowing you to just explore these parts of yourself that you weren't necessarily as open to doing before.
Right. Very much so. Very much so. Because like I said, I've always considered myself a relatively conservative guy. I don't really like things that draw attention in the physical aspect. So this has allowed me to be creative, and also at the same time put things on me that kind of like make me, invest a little bit more time in myself at the same time.
Yep, that's what it's about. Is self-care.
Right.
Self-care. As a psychologist and just as somebody who's in the helping field, we always talk about the importance of self-care. So I'm really happy to hear that you're taking heed to your own, or what is told to us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Speaking of, that kind of segues into the next thing, which is all about talking, and